welcome back. A few weeks ago in my group, I posted an anonymous form for people to fill in what they would like to see on this YouTube channel. And there was an overwhelming demand for a video about knit fabrics. Like there was questions about different types and what they're used for. So I thought I'd go ahead and make a video just explaining the types of knit fabrics that I typically use or that I use the most. This is definitely not every single type of knit fabric that you can find in the world, but I'm going to do my best in going through each type of knit and how I use them day to day. Obviously, these are just my opinions of what kind of fabrics you can use for what pattern. Do feel free to experiment yourself as we go along. When sewing a pattern, the first thing that you need to take into consideration is the fabric requirements in the pattern. In most PDF patterns, there's a little section in the pattern that tells you exactly what the pattern is drafted for, and a lot of them go by percentage of stretch. There are a few different ways to figure out your stretch percentage of each individual fabric. In my patterns, there's a little chart at the bottom of a page that has a ruler, and you can literally hold your fabric up to it and stretch it, and it will tell you the percentage of stretch. Basically, over 4 inches, you stretch it, and for every inch is another 25% stretch. And this is really, really important because the percentage of stretch can vary even within the same type of fabric. So you want to think about the garment that you're making and how you want it to look. Like, do you want it to be drapey? Do you want it to look structured? If it's a swing dress, you obviously want a more light drapey fabric. Or if it's something that has like a more structured bodice with pleats, I would definitely go with something a little bit thicker and not as drapey. And I get this question asked a lot. Can you use knit fabric for a woven pattern? Obviously, knit stretches. You can use knit for any woven pattern that you want. It just might not give the same effect that it was designed for. I always go down a size or two when converting from woven to knit just because of the stretch. A lot of people like to use knit instead of woven so that they don't have to use a zip closure or add buttons, but all of that is totally up to you. Just remember, as we're going along with this, that knit is not just knit. There are so many different types. So stick around while I try to explain some of my favorites. Okay, so the first type I'm going to show you is probably the most basic type of knit that you can find. It's called jersey. Jersey knit can have different types of contents: poly, cotton, rayon, silk, wool. This type of knit, you can easily tell the right side from the wrong side. It tends to curl up towards the right side of the fabric when you're cutting. This fabric is super drapey, so it works nicely whenever you're working on flowier patterns. I've used this a lot for like flowy cardigans or wraps, and I really, really like the drape of it when I made the runway dress. There's also a type of jersey called burnout, and it's really cool because it's kind of see-through. So you can make a top in burnout jersey and layer it with your favorite tank pattern, and it just gives it a cool effect. So next we have cotton Lycra. Cotton Lycra is super stretchy. It has really, really, really great recovery. And by recovery, I mean when you stretch it, it bounces back. Fabrics that don't have a lot of recovery will stretch out and then stay that way. It won't bounce back. Content for cotton Lycra can vary. The best part about cotton Lycra for me is it has enough structure, but it doesn't really wrinkle because it has so much stretch, and this stuff lasts a really, really, really long time. This fabric is from Dark Matter fabric, and you can see it sits very nicely, and the stretch gives it a really form-fitting effect. You can easily see the right side and the wrong side of the fabric, especially on these custom printed knits. But Ashley at Dark Matter also has these amazing yarn dyed stripes, so it's a little bit tougher to tell the right side from the wrong side in this fabric because they look almost the same. You have to look really close. My favorite pattern to use cotton Lycra on is Jawbreaker. It just lays really nicely with that big pleat on the bodice. I also like making Zappa pants with it just because of the structure, but I've also used it for a bodysuit, the sassy side dress, edgy tops, and I've even made a few December dresses when I needed them to be a little bit fluffier. The next fabric I'm going to talk about is rib knit. Obviously, rib knit, you can tell it has this ribbed texture to it. Most rib knits have a ton of stretch, but the recovery can vary. This rib knit is from Sincerely Rylee, and a lot of people have been using this for tights and whatnot. The drape on rib knits can vary quite a bit too. This one is pretty drapey, but some rib knits, especially when you get into like a sweater type rib knit, it can be kind of structured. Like this one doesn't drape as much, so I like to use this type for sweaters. I've used this for an October dress top. As we get into winter, another popular type of fabric that people are using a lot of lately is French terry. French terry has these loops on the wrong side of the fabric. Like you can feel it's like soft piles of yarn on one side, but the right side is really smooth. So it makes it a really, really comfortable fabric to wear just while lounging around the house. And it's really common for people to create really cozy hoodies with this as well. Drape of French terry can vary a lot too. This one is very drapey and very flowy, but I have gotten some French terry that is super, super thick and it doesn't have a lot of drape at all. So just whenever you're purchasing French terry, just keep in mind that this fabric comes in a lot of different thicknesses. I've used French terry for a rival dress, a sassy side top. I love it for the gathers on the picnic dress, and I made a below zero top and a lively. And you can even use it in the summer if you make it with a tank like I did with the Bonnaroo bundle. The next fabric is fleece. This fabric is just cushy and soft and cozy and fuzzy and warm. There are different types of fleece. Like this is just an anti-pill fleece that I got at Joann's forever ago. There's also a micro fleece that's a lot stretchier than just a regular fleece that doesn't have a lot of stretch. And the micro fleece is a little bit thinner than this, so it does make it a little bit easier to work with. Joann's also has a luxe fleece, which I have lined a few coats with it, and I'm planning on doing a few more. I've also backed quilts with that luxe fleece, and a lot of people make hats, gloves, blankets out of this stuff. The next is sweater knit, and I feel like I could have an entire video dedicated to only sweater knits. There are just so many different types, so many different stretches, textures. It's just really incredible how different each sweater knit feels. I am not the expert on sweater knits. If you would like to talk to an expert about sweater knits, you should go to the Sincerely Rylee shop. Darcy is amazing at explaining all the different types that she has, and she has a huge variety in her shop. So sweater knit is a knit with an open weave, which means like the knitting is a little bit looser, but this fabric is still super cozy. The stretch on sweater knits varies a lot. You can just pick one out and be like, this one has a lot of stretch and really good recovery. But like this one, it has a lot of stretch, but the recovery is just not the same. But the good thing about sweater knits is that they're really, really soft and they drape really, really well. If you're looking for a sweater knit that has a lot of really good recovery, and it's not as open weave, Hachi sweater knit is my personal favorite. I've used it for baddies and rouleaus. There is also a free poncho pattern in my Facebook group. It has a big fluffy cowl that's perfect for sweater knits. And of course, you can always use the Sincerely Sawyer sweater pattern. I wrote that pattern specifically for Sincerely Rylee sweater knits. The next fabric I have been saying wrong forever. This is Ponte. This is a really, really thick, stable knit. You can tell the right side, obviously, from the wrong side on printed Ponte, but the solid Pontes look really, really similar from wrong side to right side. This is a lot less stretchy than cotton Lycra, but it's so easy to sew. I feel like sewing this is almost like sewing a woven. It doesn't slip or slide around. I've used this a few times on the day trip skirt because of the big bulky pockets. I love, love, love this fabric for the mix it up pattern. But I think my favorite pattern to sew with this is the Rival. It is so perfect for like a bodice and a big circle skirt. That fabric just feels more luxurious. The next fabric is probably one of my favorites all time, and that's Liverpool. Liverpool is basically just a fancy word for double knit. It has a really cool texture. Hopefully you can all see that. It's just like the Ponte. It's really thick and it's really structured. It's easy to sew. I love making any type of circle skirt or flounce with Liverpool just because the texture of this fabric and the thickness of it, it just really makes a circle skirt pop. It doesn't make it like droop or sag. I have made so much stuff with Liverpool. The flounce on edgy I won't make with anything but Liverpool. Obviously all of the riot skirts are a good option. The heat wave hot pants, I've made a soda, a posh, I've made a bunch of mix it up dresses, and I even used it for the outer portion of a cold snap coat. I just really, really love this fabric for any type of fitted garment. It doesn't cling to you. It doesn't show every single little imperfection. If you can't tell, I use this a ton. So I also use a lot of stretch velvet. There's different kinds of stretch velvet. Like this one I think they call like a royal stretch velvet. It's very smooth and the wrong side is very silky. And of course velvet is always amazing with movement and being flowy because it kind of changes colors in the folds. And the other velvet that I use a lot of is crushed velvet. You can see it has that crushed texture to it, and the texture looks really cool when it moves in the light too. Be careful because stretch on stretch velvet can vary a lot. Typically the royal will have more stretch than the crushed velvet, and I feel like it has more recovery too. I've made quite a bit with velvet. I made a slash, posh, I made a Bonnaroo tank, soda, December dress, Zappa, and let's not forget that entire runway show that I made like all in velvet. Stretch lace is also a really, really cool fabric, but be careful with this one as well because the stretch can vary a lot. The sheerness can vary a lot. I feel like just like sweater knits, stretch lace could have like a video all on its own. There's just so many types and designs with stretch lace. I think my favorite thing I've ever made with stretch lace, I've been really big into making undershirts for like dresses and tops. So like I made a clover dress and put a lace undershirt under it. I made this weird asymmetrical sweater and put it under it. A lot of people use stretch lace to overlay. It's just a really, really cool accent fabric. Stretch denim. When it says stretch denim, it does stretch, but it's not a lot. So make sure whatever pattern that you're doing, the required stretch lines up with the fabric that you're going to use. I did make an original version of Zappa pants with stretch denim in the first round of like 100 that we had for that pattern. Next we have ITY fabric. ITY stands for interlock twist yarn. It's a really, really silky, flowy, drapey fabric. I like to use this fabric for V-neck tees, the Rebel choker tee, and making a with love dress is a really, really good option for summer. And I seem to find all of my really, really cool border prints in ITY. Okay, the next fabric is Rayon Spandex. I don't use rayon spandex a ton just because for me personally, I like a more structured garment. But if I make a t-shirt, I tend to gravitate towards rayon spandex because it's light and flowy and drapey too. It's perfect for summer. It's definitely a very, very breathable fabric, and there always seems to be the funnest prints in rayon spandex. Like I said, if I'm doing a t-shirt like a v-neck, I will use this, but I have made a with care, which I think was tie-dye too, and I have made a drama dress with this. It feels like you're wearing nothing. Next up is Scuba. Scuba fabric is like a thin neoprene. Like, I don't know if you can see the thickness of this fabric. This fabric is pretty stretchy and it will suck right to you. So I've made a lot of dress bodices with Scuba fabric just because of the structure. But I think my favorite thing that I've made with Scuba, and I think really worked well, was the campfire pants. They're structured enough for a pant, but it's flowy enough so it doesn't look stiff. I've seen a lot of people use this for circle skirts. A hemmed Scuba circle skirt is amazing. I also like Scuba fabric for like the Stark top. Ooh, I need to make a one-shoulder dress with this. This is swim fabric. I feel like I don't have to explain this. This is used mostly for bathing suits, but there have been a couple dresses I've seen where people have used swim. Obviously, with my patterns, the favorite is the Daybreak Rash Guard. I feel like I've made 1 million swimsuits. Obviously, swim fabric is super stretchy. It's moisture wicking, and if you're making a dress with it, it's really drapey. So stretch mesh isn't a fabric that you see all the time in fabric shops. Stretch mesh is a sheer fabric. You can see right through that stuff. Make sure if you are using this for a knit pattern that whenever you purchase it, it does say stretch mesh, because there are mesh fabrics that do not stretch. I made a bodysuit once that had a stretch mesh like V-cut insert. I've used this for like summertime cardies, and I'm into using this for undershirts as well, like you saw in the Starstruck tutorial video. Okay, so the next fabric I kind of have a little pet peeve about, brush poly. So brush poly became super popular a few years back with the whole LuLaRoe legging bandwagon. Everybody wanted this fabric. I will say brush poly is a very, very comfortable, very, very stretchy, good recovery fabric. Obviously in the name, it's polyester that has been brushed. It's very soft. Please nobody say like butter. And I think a lot of people were using this for leggings. The issue though with this fabric, I feel like since it has been brushed, it doesn't last quite as long as other fabrics. Sometimes certain brush polys will pill, and ever since the brushed poly explosion, I feel like there's a lot of people who only want to use this fabric for every single pattern. I mean, I get it, brushed poly, it's everywhere. There's so many different types of prints. It's affordable, but I'm here to tell you, it tends to cling to you. It's not super breathable. And I have a ton of brush poly that I bought during the craze that's literally been sitting on my shelves for years. Now, after all of my brush poly bashing, so in an effort to use up some of my fabric, I have made quite a few t-shirts from brush poly, and I did make the drama dress when we re-released it with the update with brush poly. The problem for me, I think, is that there is so much floral brush poly, and while floral can be really, really pretty, I just feel like for me personally, the trend is kind of done. So while brush poly is a very, very comfortable fabric, I'm finding it very, very hard to find things to sew with it. That's all for my brush poly rant today. So if you're looking for a different fabric that has a nicer quality than rayon spandex and has a little bit more recovery, bamboo Lycra is amazing. This is from Wanderlust. This is a custom bamboo Lycra. It's just really drapey and flowy, but it has more of a thickness to it. And usually with these custom fabric bases, the fabric tends to last a lot longer and the print tends to stay vibrant longer. I really, really like making December dresses with bamboo Lycra. And last but not least, my very, very favorite fabric that I've been using lately is this Techno Crepe. I don't know if you can see the texture, it's almost like Liverpool, but this stuff stretches and recovers like elastic. It's so stretchy. I think I'm gonna buy Darcy out of all of this. I feel like it's the perfect fabric for a starstruck. Like, the bodice just is not gonna go anywhere with all those straps being super thick. I basically sewed my entire last collection with Techno Crepe. I did the October dress and the extra tops, and I do love it for the mix it up dress as well. Ooh, that was a lot of knit, honey. So I hope I helped answer maybe just a few questions today. Sometimes I feel like I use these fabrics so often, like it's just second nature to me, but I know that there are people out there who maybe don't have the greatest understanding of the differences in knit, and it's a lot to learn. I feel like for me personally, it took like ordering the fabric, getting it in, feeling it, sewing it up, made me learn about knits so much easier. It's so hard to show others how knits work and flow just in a photo or in a video. A lot of them you just really need to feel. And like I said at the beginning of the video, it's always good to experiment with different fabrics, with different patterns. It is all personal preference. I like cotton Lycra for some things. Others might like a different type of fabric for the exact same thing. That is literally the beauty of it. There's so many different types of fabric. There's so many different prints, solid colors. That's why I love watching all of the groups on Facebook, watching people post to Instagram. There is just such a wide variety, and everyone uses fabrics just a little different. That is the whole point of being creative, the whole point of being inspiring. There's just so much to look at. So I hope you found this video helpful. I mean, I'll talk about fabric any day of the week. I've been working on another video that should be coming soon that I think you will all get into. So make sure that you are subscribed and have your notifications turned on. I try vlogging outside of these four walls for the first time, and it's really exciting, it's really fun. Make sure you are following us on all of our social media, linked into the description. G&G just turned 4 this week. I cannot believe this started like 4 years ago. So thank you to everyone who has supported G&G on like every single different type of social media I send you to. You make it all worth it, and I cannot wait to be back here again next Thursday. Bye.